Hello, everyone, and welcome to Movies You Should Have Watched with Scribe and Monkey. And today we're going to cover the classic film from, how old is this thing?
Oh, dear God, no
I should,
idea.
it was like 1980 something. The research I should have done before the stream, or at least pulled up the page on it. Let me do that right now live because it's exciting to see behind the scenes like this, right? 1984. Ice Pirates, or The Ice Pirates, depending on how you look at it, starring Robert Urich and a cavalcade of other well-known and not so well-known names. But before we get to that, Monkey, how are you today?
I am doing pretty well. How are you?
I am okay, all things considered. I guess where to start. I watched this movie the other day, and I had not seen it at least since the 80s, I'm going to say.
Yeah, probably me too.
I think I might have caught it on TBS back in 1988 or something. So there are only like very specific images or sequences that I still had in my memory that made it sort of like sentimental. But I couldn't remember for the life of me the quote unquote plot. Of course, there's not much to remember, as we'll get to, but it still has a place in my heart because it was just so unabashedly cheese that I remember. It like tried to play it serious in a way, like they weren't making fun of themselves, even though the whole thing was kind of a satire in a way. You know what I mean?
Well, here I'm going to say something you will probably never hear me say again.
Okay.
I think this movie needs to be remade. And we'll get into why. We can get into why later. But
sure.
If you know nothing else about this movie, turn it on, watch the credits, the opening credits, and you're pretty seriously, because the music in this movie is so bad.
It is
so very bad. It's like watching. I was trying to tell Lady Monkey, trying to describe it, and what it reminds me of is like the music that would play during action scenes of the A-Team or 80s buddy cop TV shows. That's the kind of music this thing had going.
Well, it sounds like really dated, rousing adventure music. That's really what it sounds like. And I as I watch this, I mean, just the style, the direction, the quality, it looked more and more like a TV movie than it did really any kind of like actual cinematic release. And of course, Robert Urich there kind of lends to that. Now, let's see. Well, let's just start. Let's just begin. First off, a little bit of a anachronistic Easter egg in the very opening sequence is the production company, JF Productions. I don't even know what that means, really, what that stands for, but JF Productions. And so, Jean-Francois! It might be John Foreman, because it was produced by John Foreman. So I'm guessing it's probably John Foreman. But yeah, so it opens up with this really bad title sequence that looks like it was just, I mean, everything about this movie says low rent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what adds to its charm, because it almost seems like they revel in the fact that they are so cheap in a way.
Well, it depends, because like the costuming is actually really well done.
Oh yeah, Robert Urich's outfits are actually really good. I actually kind of like those. They look really like space piratey and everything.
Yeah, but then you get to the robots or the ship sequences, when the space sequences. Oh my God, they're so bad, so very bad.
I think Battlestar Galactica, the '80s version of the show, had better space special effects than this one. But anyway, so we start out with JF Productions, cheesy music. And the credits start going by, and you start seeing names you would not have imagined in this film, all things considered, like Angelica Houston is in this movie. And she's wearing a bird cage for part of the film as part of her armor. Ron Perlman, which just, this movie continues to prove to me that Ron Perlman is an immortal vampire, because he does not fucking age. Like, you look at him then, you look at him now, you're like, what, has it like 10 years passed or something?
You know what? To me, it seems like he's gotten taller, but not older, because he seemed really short in this movie.
Yeah. Of course, maybe he just plays next to small people all the time too, or smaller.
It could be because everybody towered over him in this.
Yeah, that's true too. God, Robert Urich. Right, I just gotta say, Robert Urich is just such a fun guy to watch. He just looked like he was having a really fun time doing this movie. Like he
Yeah.
wasn't taking it seriously, which kind of helped given the subject matter.
Well, that's one thing about this movie is that there's obvious jokes in it where they're trying for jokes,
Yes,
but they still play it serious.
right.
It's one of the reasons I think that if this was remade, and by remade, what I mean is with better graphics,
Hmm.
better music, and everything else literally exactly the same. Um, just to update, I want an updated movie. Put it that way. I don't want a remake. I want it updated.
Hmm.
But yeah, they do play it say or straight, and Robert Urich does it so well
Yeah,
through the whole thing. I mean, he makes this movie.
he kind of comes off as like if Han Solo had his own movie. Oh, wait a second.
Yes, this
Um,
should be a
yeah,
solo movie.
it should be the solo movie. So yeah, we get Angelica Houston, Ron Perlman, Robert Urich. There are some other actors in there that you may recognize by face more than you know by name. There's one actor who you will know far better by a face that is not his, but I'll get to that as soon as we get to his appearance. And I wonder if Monkey knows who I'm talking about. We'll get there. So the they give us a little overture that tells us a little bit about the backstory.
Yes.
And this is one of the things that I have a question about, but we'll get into the movie. But anyway, so the idea is, in short, that water is a rare commodity in the universe or in the galaxy or whatever. And basically an empire has destroyed all other water-bearing planets around except for this one called Mithra. And so it's sort of like Dune and the Spice, except it's water. Um, and so, since water is such a valuable commodity, and of course you need it to live, these guys, the ice pirates, go around hijacking ships with the only way they transport water apparently is in big blocks of ice, and then they steal it and then they sell it or use it as whatever. Um, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, like if water's such I mean, everybody's dead. If you don't have water, you're going to die.
Well, they still have water. It's just very limited, and only the rich people have tons of it.
Yeah, and for as much as this movie's called Ice Pirates, they don't pirate much ice in this movie.
No, they start out trying to pirate ice.
Yeah,
and so that's actually where it opens up after the introduction. There is with them pulling up on another ship so they can steal ice.
Yeah, there's a big transport ship, and in relation to the transport ship, the ice pirate ship, which I believe, and this is one of the faults with the movie, is that I can never tell what things are named or what characters have names because they rarely ever mention them.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe their ship is called the Eagle. It has a special gimmick to it, but we'll get there soon. Anyway, it's tiny as compared to this giant cargo ship, and so they land on this thing and they cut their way into it with laser special effects.
Those such awesome laser special effects too.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the fact that this thing is, even for 1984, looked really cheap, actually adds to its charm. And the fact that, like Monkey was saying, like even though the setting is ridiculous and the characters and all the situations are really ludicrous, there's a certain level of respect that everybody in the film kind of gives to this movie. Like there are people there's a couple of scenes where I was like, that's actually decent acting.
Yeah,
that scene.
Absolutely.
And we'll get there too. Anyway, so they cut into the ship and they start going down the hallways of what looks like a power plant they rented for a weekend or something. And they come across what I call Radio Shack R2D2.
Oh my God, yes.
It almost looks like, it reminds me of like a smaller version of the robot in like Rocky IV.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
And so it's the doot 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 going down and everything else. And the robots in this thing are treated like cannon fodder. There's only a couple of robots are given a name, but they don't last very long for whatever reason.
Yeah, there's two kind of robots. You have the little roaming ones like this one that we're talking about, and then you have the big ones, which are basically they're fighters for you.
Yes.
And you buy them, and we learn right away that they've recently bought a bunch of robots that aren't working as well as they should. Because Robert Urich, and I don't know the black guy's name. I couldn't.
The character's name is Roscoe.
Okay, Roscoe.
The actor's name is Michael D. Roberts.
Yeah, he used to be in quite a few things, TV shows and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know whatever happened to the guy, but they have quite their. It's Robert Urich, the captain. He's obviously the number two. They're great friends and stuff. But yeah, they argue about the robots almost immediately, and the robots not working is a running theme through this whole fucking movie.
Yeah, and they're disposable heroes basically.
Yes.
They're just like cannon fodder and like backup fighters and things with swords mostly, or just punching each other.
And it's you can tell these are people dressed up. This is not high tech robots out there. This is a dude in a square suit that they painted to look like a robot. They're horrible.
Although I have to say, there had to have been at least a couple of actors who were amputees that they put in some of these costumes, because a couple of the robots have like peg legs or missing legs or something, and you still see somebody moving around in there. So they did hire some people who could fit inside those things, whether they were, I assume they were amputees. It makes the most sense. But anyway, so they go roaming around the ship looking for the ice, and along the way they come across a Victorian maid, which
the princess.
Well, there's the Victorian maid who is guarding the princess.
Yes.
The outfit the maid is wearing is
she's wearing a French maid costume.
It's so, I mean, as soon as you see that, this is not going to be taking itself very seriously, because that is just so out of place. And there's also some other anachronistic mentions of things in here that seem to conflict with the ending, but we'll get there. So we learned that this ship, including shipping ice across the universe, is also in sort of like, I guess, a sleeping tube or something, also carrying Karina of Argon, the princess of the true king or somebody of the empire. Mm-hmm. And she's in this tube, like with all this smoke, and she's like in stasis or something. And Robert Urich gets a total boner for her as soon as he sees her. And then they're all the other guys are like, dude, leave the girl. We got to get the ice and get out of here.
I love this. Yes.
And so Jason, Robert Urich's character, he says, "Oh man, what happened to we rape and pillage?" And he walks out. And you're like, "Oh shit!" That would
Can you imagine that in a movie today? Somebody go, "What happened to us raping?" Yes, it was so great.
Yeah, never.
Do you know who she is?
She is Mary Crosby from Dallas.
Yes, I didn't know that's Bing Crosby's daughter.
Oh, I didn't know that either. Okay.
I watched this on Amazon, so I had all those pop-ups I told you about before that you can click on.
Okay.
So yeah, I read that. I was like, I didn't realize that. I had such a little boner for her when she was on Dallas. My mom used to watch Dallas every week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I used to have such a crush on that girl.
Yeah, she's very pretty, and she also, like everybody else, she plays this movie straight, relatively speaking. So let's see. They get into this big fight, and they're fighting guards who are dressed up like the Knights Templar with like chainmail and shit. I mean, it's just so out of place.
You have these guys running around in chainmail, and you also have like lasers that they use to cut through stuff. It's ridiculous. It's so beautiful, though. I love it.
Ron, let's see.
I want to stop here and point this out, because we are going to rip this movie to shreds because it is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But I still love this movie. I really do. I love it more now than when I used to.
It's fun.
Strictly for the cheese and fun, yes.
It is unapologetically just fun and cheesy. It doesn't try to be anything that it isn't, which, I kind of appreciate, really. Mm-hmm. So I got several notes here, because really we get sort of a prolonged action sequence where Ron Perlman gets his hand cut off that eventually gets reattached somehow, and they never mention it again. There's a big robot fight between the Templars robots and the Ice Pirates robots, and they're just kind of hitting each other with swords and stuff. And so they get to the bridge of the ship, and they intimidate the captain or whatever, the commander of the bridge, to sort of give up and not try to alert the guards or whatever. But then, of course, that only lasts for about 5 minutes before somebody hits the alarm button. And then something that we never see anywhere else again in the movie, somebody takes a laser shot at Jason, and he holds up his arm, and the laser shot bounces off his wrist guard.
We do see it again. It happens near the end of the movie, too.
Oh, okay, I must have missed it, because I was just like, wow, if you have things that can bounce lasers off, why aren't all of your outfits made of it?
Yeah, because I saw it at the beginning, and then I completely forgot about it until near the final fight. It happens again, and I'm like, That is such that's Wonder Woman from the TV show.
Yeah. Thank you, Okie Native. Krull was better, same writer. Now, Krull is a future entry into this series of ours. Have you seen Krull?
Yeah.
Okay,
Long time ago.
Yeah, we'll get into Krull, which was basically like, well, we can't get the rights to Dungeons and Dragons, so we'll make up our own movie, which is kind of how Darkman happened, which is another one we're going to do at some point because I love Darkman. But yeah, Krull's its own thing, but we'll get there at some point. So yeah, they have this fight on the bridge. They apparently their other guys have captured some of the ice and loaded it on the ship. We don't see it happens off camera because that would take money and special effects, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then as they try to escape, Robert York's like, "You guys go ahead. I'm gonna go get the princess." And he goes and kidnaps the princess, who just kind of like comes along with him.
Yeah.
And then we get a character that we only see in one scene and never see again. He's referred to, I think, as the commander. And he's just this, he's a black guy with an afro, and he's like the boss to all these other people. And he never shows up again in the movie after this one scene. But as I'm watching this, I'm thinking to myself, wow, diversity.
Yeah.
We got a diverse cast and nobody gives a shit. There are some jokes made. There's some like race jokes made in the movie about why is the guy black? Because I want to try to make him perfect.
Why is there a reason this robot's black?
Yeah.
I wanted to make him perfect. Yes, that was a great line.
But they never dwell on it. It's never a big deal. And it just kind of goes along. It's like, God forbid that we have a movie where that's just a thing anymore and nobody gives a shit.
Yeah, there's only one part where race is actually an issue. And it's when they're on the one planet or when they go to the pirate planet.
Mm-hmm.
And the one dude who ends up getting his head cut off sits down next to the black guy and he goes, "It's the cute one," and drops the N-bomb. And the black guy he's talking to just kind of looks at him. He goes, "I mean the black gentleman."
Yeah.
Like, yes.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
And then that's it. That's all they talk about it.
That's it. Let's see. So then we get our space chase where the Templar ship is chasing the Eagle. Again, I think it's called the Eagle. They only say it like once or twice in offhanded. So anyway, so they're chasing the ice pirates. They start fighting back against the Templars using an Atari interface, which was hilarious because he's basically playing an Atari like Space Invaders game to shoot at the bad guys, which I thought was lovely. And then the ship splits apart into 3 different ships.
Yes, before the next generation ever did it.
Yeah, so the different groups of the pirates go off to different sides of the ship, and then we see the ship split off into 3, so they can't chase all 3 at once. But the main ship chases after the one holding Jason and Roscoe and the princess, and so they get captured.
Yes,
pretty quickly. Which again, we don't really see how their ship gets docked with or anything. It just kind of happens because a wall blows up and suddenly they're there. There's a lot of like missing scenes in this movie, I think. But
well, yeah, it's one of the ways this was a low budget movie is because they had to do things like that too.
Yeah. So they're captured and then they're put onto basically a prison ship and they're being shipped to Mithra, which is like the homeworld of the Templars and the Empire or whatever it is, which is the only source of water in the galaxy. And while they're in this cage, they meet a new character named Killjoy, who tries to trade a gold necklace with Roscoe for what little water he's been given. Or they call it soup, but it looks like water. And Killjoy is played by John Matuszak. Now, Monkey, I bet your Amazon.com told you who John Matuszak is.
I didn't pay attention. Not to him.
Well, Monkey John Matuszak is Sloth.
Is he really?
He is Sloth from the Goonies.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And he's been in tons and tons of movies playing a tough guy or whatever else. But yeah, he's actually sort of one of the more fun characters as the movie progresses.
He's probably my favorite character.
Yeah, Killjoy's fun. And he's just this big, hulking guy. Because the actor used to be a football player, I believe. Let me make sure I have that right. John Matuszak.
Wait, didn't he play for like the Raiders?
Yep, Oakland Raiders, 1973 NFL draft.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I knew I knew that name from somewhere, and when you said it again, I'm like, yeah, that's the Raiders. Yeah, I remember him playing.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he passed away in 1989 of a drug overdose. I think it was a prescription overdose, not intentional, but anyway. Regardless. So yeah, we see them in this cage being offloaded from the ship, being like craned over again, what looks like just a used warehouse factory or something.
We also learn when they're still on the ship in the cage going to Mithril or Mithros, whatever it is, that they're going to be castrated.
Yes, they're going to be turned into servants and slaves by being castrated
and lobotomized.
And lobotomized, yes.
And the only people they don't do this to is clergy because, just in case God exists.
Right. And so there's one monk guy that was sitting there in the cage with them, but as they get offloaded from the cage themselves, Killjoy suddenly has the robe now. He's like, bless you, my brothers, and he walks off like.
Which is a thing that happens with him throughout. It's one of the reasons he's my favorite characters because he keeps popping up like that. We see him later dressed up as a robot.
Yeah.
It's just awesome. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
So Roscoe and Jason are loaded up onto the bottling machine. It's basically it's just again they use some industrial plant thing as the set, and so they're laying on this conveyor belt and they're being shipped towards a machine that has giant alligator jaws that are going to cut off their balls and everything.
As they're going down, it's great because it's actually like an assembly line. There's people there shaving them and
they're prepping them,
talking to them, and it's like, no, you'll be fine. But yeah, then we see them going towards these ridiculous. It's a mouth about to bite off their nuts.
Yeah, it looks like one of the Mousers from Mutant Ninja Turtles. If you ever watched the cartoon,
yes, it does.
It's like the mouth of that. But anyway, so both Jason and Roscoe go towards the machine. And you think they're getting their balls chopped off, and there's no way to think that they wouldn't. But apparently, the princess is on the other side of this thing, and she has arranged for them to avoid this fate.
Yes.
Which is like, why is she doing this? Because she was the unwilling captive just 5 minutes ago. But we'll learn about that later. Anyway, so Jason and Roscoe go through all the other appearances of becoming these castrati slave people. Their hair is turned all white. Their eyebrows, the hair on their heads. They're put into these white tight leotard things with numbers on them, and they're put on display. With some other guys.
A really weird part because they're supposedly just castrated, and there's is it a woman or a dude, I forget, who yanks their pants up real high.
Yeah, it's a woman. Yeah.
Yeah, and their balls should have been showing at that point.
Yeah, and everybody else on the line, all the other castrated ones, also have bulges. So
yes.
Yeah, but regardless, and in comes the French maid in a different outfit now, the princess, and they're being shown these slaves by Ian Abercrombie. And if you don't know who Ian Abercrombie is, he recently passed away, but he was a prolific British actor. You would have seen him all over the place, but the one role that he did before he passed away was he was the voice of Emperor Palpatine on the Clone Wars animated series, and he did a great job there. But anyway, so Ian Abercrombie, another guy who looks like he never aged anymore from that movie onward in his life, starts showing them off, the slaves to the princess and her attendant or whatever. There's not much that happens there except that she chooses Roscoe and Jason to come with them, of course, because they're there. And then we get this establishing shot of the city.
Yeah.
And it is Logan's Run level special effects, except I think Logan's Run looked better. This looks like somebody spray painted some tin cans silver and stacked them up to look like a tower and then put like a train track around them. It's just, I love the fact that it's so unapologetically cheese. They didn't try to do anything more than what they were, basically.
In regards to like the special effects, I wonder how much of that was because of budget.
Oh, it had to be budget. It had to be budget, and this was not Star Wars. It was obviously trying to ride the coattails of Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica type stuff.
Oh yeah, the relationship between Jason and the princess is just Han Solo and Leia.
Oh yeah, as much as it can be. Anyway, so Jason and Roscoe are immediately put to work at this the most garish uh, sort of, I don't
That
know.
is the gayest party I've ever seen.
It looks like disco barfed in a room.
It did.
I mean, apparently futuristic means gold glitter on things, because everybody was in gold glitter or really like shiny fabric, and there's people who are like, they've got some like there are people like floating on the ceiling. Yeah, go ahead.
There's that one, the chick puts a thing on her head and turns it up, and suddenly she starts floating, and Jason's looking up her skirt as she goes up. And the princess comes by. You're not supposed to care about that anymore, remember?
Yeah. And he looks up again. He's like, oh,
yeah, he does. Which is weird, because she gives that machine to him, and I thought, like, that's going to come into play sometime later. It's got to.
Never does.
And it never does.
Yeah. Because it would have probably solved a couple of problems later on in the story. Again, I have to imagine there's a lot that was on the cutting room floor of this movie, ultimately. But anyway, so this disco ballroom thing is sort of a cover for the princess to try to make her escape, which seems like a really bad place to try to make an escape from when you've got like a big royal ball with all the guards all over the place. And we also meet sort of head on. I think he was introduced briefly in the space chase scene, but our kind of primary villain is Count Paisley. And he's this sort of like
a great name,
long drawn faced looking, evil guy. And so he's like, seize them or whatever, and they're trying to escape. And then we get basically what looks like a chase inside of a mall.
Yeah, it does. And this is the first time of many where we see people being dragged behind something.
Yes.
It happens throughout this. I think there's 3 or 4 different times this happens, but Jason, the princess, and Roscoe get on a motorcycle, and what's his name?
Killjoy.
Killjoy.
Well, Jason and the princess get on the motorcycle. Roscoe and Killjoy, they find an alternate means of transportation shortly thereafter. But anyway, so there's this motorcycle chase through like carpeted hallways and what looks like a repurposed mall or something, and it's really silly. And there's a police car kind of thing that's basically like somebody took a go-kart and put like a futuristic police shell over it.
Yes.
And they're running around. And then as they're driving down, there's 3 robots in a row scooting down the hallway. A really big robot, a slightly smaller robot, and then a really tiny little Radio Shack robot. And then as they drive through these robots, they knock down the little one and the medium-sized one, and then the larger one goes, "Mommy, baby."
Yes.
He just killed his family. I'm like, what the fuck? I was like, it was so
dark.
Shit. What the fuck did they just do? Is the robots have sentience now and children? Holy crap. And also, so as they get away on the motorcycle, Roscoe and Killjoy, they're trying to figure out a way to get away because the cops are coming. And then jive talking robot Vegas man rolls up.
It's a pimp.
He's a pimp. He's a pimp bot. It's a pimp bot. And the pimp bot's like, hey, you looking for the best titties in the galaxy or whatever? And he's got a little TV on his chest and he's all like sparkly and got like neon colors coming out of him. And it's like, hey, I'll take you straight to the club or whatever. And I cannot recreate the guy's voice. It was amazing. And they're like, yeah, sure. And so they get in the car. I kept thinking Johnny Cab from Total Recall.
If you remember, Killjoy wants to go, and Roscoe's like, "No, man, we got to do other stuff." And what finally gets him is, "I got transportation." They're like, "Transportation?" Right. Yeah,
right. Yeah, I'll drive you right there.
Pimp robot was awesome.
Pod. Yeah, that was funny. So anyway, eventually, again, somehow off camera, they all meet up at the same spot and get back on their ship and take off to escape into the atmosphere. And then the princess hijacks the pirates.
Yes.
She holds a gun on them, and there's something about how she's like somehow in between the time that they were captured and now she's had something hard-coded into the ship that only she can unlock or whatever, and they're going to go where she wants them to go or whatever.
Well, what happened is Roscoe had put the coordinates to the pirate's planet into the nav computer.
Right.
And she has a way to completely lock that out once it's in there.
Right. Okay. And so she's taking them hostage because she wants them to find her father. Because her
Well, no,
father. Oh, sorry.
not yet.
Oh, we don't.
What she wants right now is to go meet a pirate on
right.
on the planet. She doesn't tell them yet about that. They've heard about her father through rumor at this point. She hasn't mentioned it to them
that's right.
yet.
Yeah, on when they were in the cage and they're being loaded up, getting ready to be castrated, there's Mr. Exposition guy in the cage with them who tells them about how the true king or whatever went on an expedition to try to find the seventh planet. And the seventh planet, we get more information as the movie goes on, but the seventh planet is supposedly like some mythical water planet that will allow people to have water without end or something, and so it's a sort of myth. But the king disappeared looking for this thing, and that's what we know about at this point. So yeah, she's looking for a pirate named it was like Lanky or something.
Yeah, I forget his name.
Lanky something. But anyway, so they're going to go to the pirate planet to look for Lanky, and the picture that she has, this little hologram thing. And I'll say, relatively speaking, the holograms in this movie looked about as good as Star Wars holograms, more or less.
Sure,
what they were, But anyway, he looks like a relatively dashing, sort of guy. Whatever. He looks kind of young and dashing and everything. Well, that'll come up later. But then we cut to, I guess, who is the usurper king? Because Count Paisley or Lord Paisley or whatever is going to go tell some supreme commander ruler guy that their plan to have the princess escape, because apparently they wanted her to escape, is in full swing. And the supreme commander is played by John Carradine, who looks like he's about 3 steps away from actually dying, but he's on this hospital bed thing. This is the only time we ever see the guy. He says a couple of lines about how, oh yes, everything's going according to plan, and then we never see him again. Like, okay. He was dressed up in like gold lame as well, because he's futuristic.
His makeup and everything though was really well done. He looked like he was about to die.
Yeah, and John Carradine, whatever else you might say about John Carradine, almost to a 1. Any movie he does, any role that he's given, whether it's from a Z movie or onward, he plays it straight. He plays it like he's an actor doing something important, regardless of the role. So again, all credit to him and the other people for, giving it their all, more or less. But yeah, no, he looked awful because John Carradine at that point was a million years old in real life. But yeah, we learned that the princess's escape was somehow planned or expected by the big guys, the Templars.
Yeah, as they escape, I can't remember if it's Jason or Roscoe. One of them mentions, that was really easy. So that when we cut over to there and we find out, yes, it was easy because they let them escape, which, by the way, is straight out of Star Wars.
Yes, yeah, that whole plot point is straight out of Star Wars. And then we get back on the pirate ship, and we meet the next best character in the movie, which is, the alien egg.
Oh my god!
That hatches open, and we get the alien space worm, or the space herpy.
Space herpes.
Well, it's just a herpy. It's just one. It's singular. It's a herpy.
Space herpy.
The space herpy.
Which serves no purpose in this goddamn movie.
Except to totally make a alien ripoff scene at a dinner portion of things. But yeah, so it's a phallic little worm thing with a face that goes running around. And it's pretty much just sort of to make a joke about herpes in general, because they have a whole tirade later in the movie about, it's like, hey, why didn't you tell me this ship has space herpes? Like, well, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It's not going to kill you. It's oh God. Anyway. So yeah, that's a plot point. But then we end up back at the pirate planet. And our first scene in getting to the pirate planet is to see a midget guy shining someone's shoes.
That is a really small midget, too. That is a tiny midget.
That guy was itsy bitsy. Then we get a rip-off of the Mos Eisley Cantina, where we sort of focus in on the various characters and things around this sort of pirate hovel thing. We get some establishing shots of this is basically just like one big trash town kind of deal. And the waitress running around is Zelda Rubinstein. And if you don't know who Zelda Rubinstein is, she is a very short woman. She was in Poltergeist, and she was also in Picket Fences. She has a very distinctive, very childlike voice, even though she's a grown adult. And she's just in there as the waitress for a scene or two. It was fine. And they're sitting at the table and they're trying to figure out, okay, what's our next move? Because the guy that they're looking for is out in the wasteland somewhere, and in order to get to him, they need some kind of land craft. And I'm like, are cars really that hard to come by in this universe? I guess. And so they figure out that some alien over at another table has a land craft. And so Jason's like, hey, why don't you go over there to the princess and says, hey, why don't you go over there and, convince him to lend us your land craft? And she's like, I will do no such thing. And he's like, well, do you want to find the guy or not? Huh? And she goes over there after taking off her little shawl or whatever. And then she comes back a second later and says, well, he is a she, and she finds you very attractive. And it's like this green frog woman thing sitting over there. And so, I guess.
Did you catch real quick? Did you catch how much her outfit when she took off the shawl thing was reminiscent of Leia in?
Oh yeah. Oh, it's all Jedi. White. Yeah, it's all white and
she's got the little gold thing wrapped around her arm.
Right. Yeah. There's so many subtle and not so subtle. I'm not even calling them homages because they're basically just ripoffs.
Yeah, they're ripoffs.
So many other sci-fi movies like Alien and Star Wars. And I think there's even some Star Trek in there somewhere. But
yeah, it's really hard to tell if this movie was supposed to be a parody.
Yeah,
because of how straight they play it.
Yeah, and because it is, it is ultimately kind of an original idea, except it rips off so many different. It's sort of like Stranger Things. It's like they've taken bits and pieces from so many different movies and narratives and such that it's almost like its own thing as a result.
Yes.
Anyway, so he goes over there to try to charm this lady, but then this bounty hunter guy, this giant guy with a big tattoo on his face and an eye patch and everything, he comes over and starts trouble because he's going to take him out. I guess he was hired to kill Roscoe and Jason. It never really gets clarified as to why he's doing what he's doing, unless I missed something.
No, it really doesn't.
Yeah, and because if the Templars and the Empire want her to escape in order to lead them to something, then why would you try to kill? Anyway, so
real quick, Kelvin says sounds like Spaceballs. Kind of, but it doesn't have that direct satire that you see in Spaceballs, the direct parody of shit.
Yeah,
there's no Darth helmet in this.
Right, it's more like inspired by in a lot of cases.
Yeah,
because it's not. Yeah, again, this is why we call it movies you should have watched. You just kind of have to watch it because it's its own thing, really. I mean, again, we'll get to a Road Warrior kind of thing here in a minute too, because all types of movies are taken off. Anyway, so there's a big fight with Angelica Houston. Angelica Houston and Ron Perlman have also met up. This was like their rendezvous point. So all the crew basically is back together again. Angelica Houston has a sword fight, an electrified sword fight with a guy, not the big tattooed eye patch guy, but the other guy that was making the reference that he had to correct about the black guy earlier. And she cuts off his head, which is kind of cool. But the guy had an it wasn't a lightsaber, but it cut through anything and it had sparks. And so it was a special kind of electro sword.
Yeah, he cut a metal table in half with it.
Yeah, and he was putting slices and all types of different things. Whoops, what did I do there? I hit the space button. So then that fight happens, and then we almost immediately cut to Frog Lady and Jason and the princess on dune buggy out in the desert somewhere.
That fucking car was so cheese.
Oh man. Well, it's not nearly as cheese as the bad guy's car when we get to it, but but the other thing too is I was watching this, I was like, they had to ADR that entire thing because there's no way that you could hear anybody's voice over the sand and the noise and everything else. So it's all re-recorded. But the frog lady's like, do you like my top? She's talking like a frog or whatever. I think you're pretty cute. Or something like that. Oh God. And I love it. I mean, it's and the makeup, for what it was, it looked like Star Trek level Next Generation makeup for an alien.
Yeah. Her makeup was great for an alien. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean everything else, it was decent. I could see that kind of creature type effect on an actual TV show. But yeah, they have a solar dune buggy. It's like this car with some solar panels on the top, and they're driving through the desert. Also, space gophers for no particular
Yes.
reason. Just like there's space gophers that they pass by as they're going through the desert that pop up out of those holes and make little chittering noises. And I thought, is this an homage to Caddyshack?
It kind of looks like it, but you know what that reminded me of because of how out of place they look?
Hmm.
It actually kind of looks like the special edition Star Wars where they just went and added stuff to it.
Oh, these are actual puppets. Looks like they filmed them actually out in the desert, which means they had to dig holes and have guys underneath there or something. I don't know. But either way, yeah, space gophers.
You can tell that it's spliced.
Oh, was it? I could. Yeah. Okay, I thought it was there, but whatever. So they're heading to some little place called Sweetwater, which is
Sweetwater.
I guess it's a location or a town, even though we never really see a town. We just see a bunch of like abandoned buildings and tents and things. And they find their pirate or their explorer or whatever, except that he's way older than the hologram we saw earlier.
Yep.
And this is a foreshadowing of something that'll happen later in the movie, where the guy says, he's like Jason's like, Lanky, what happened to you? What you look, he's just like, oh, my bod. Well, I hit a time warp, 20 years and 20 seconds. And I'm like, oh, so there's time warps in this movie. All right. And they kind of mention that, and and there's a scene where he's kind of like telling stories about the princess's father to the princess. And, again, it's one of those things where it's like, it's played straight. If you took this scene out of this movie and just had it isolated as its own thing, it might fit into a kind of cheesy costume drama, because the guy who's playing the old guy does a decent job of sort of like being sentimental and talking about his adventures and things, and being sort of like, oh, I just came here to die. I'm done with it. Everything else. So yeah, I don't know who that actor was off the top of my head. It might be in the details somewhere, but
yeah, I've seen him in other things, but I couldn't tell you what.
So as they're sort of, as the old guy kind of tells them where they can find his father, or where he last saw him or whatever, on planet X or something. I don't remember. The frog lady's go-kart blows up. Like, she just dies. Like, bad guys are coming in this giant skull-faced car thing with huge wheels on the sides.
Well, we learned a couple of things here during that conversation.
Yes.
Because they have to go to the triad planet.
The triad system or something. The tri system.
Yeah.
Tri system, yeah.
Because that's where her dad was last. But we also learn that the seventh planet is real.
Yeah, so says him.
Says him.
Yeah, and Jason's like, oh, whatever.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So as they're saying that, this dune buggy of death comes up, and the frog lady and her car just explode.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh shit, she's totally dead. Okay, that was quick. And then we have this sort of Road Warrior-esque fight with these barbarians on the car. I don't know who they belong to or why they're there. I guess was it Eye Patch Guy again that was doing it?
Yeah, the Eye Patch Guy from the bar.
Yeah, even though he was defeated by Angelica Houston, I guess he doesn't get the hint. So he's got a whole bunch of his cronies with him, and they're chasing him down. And we have this sort of deal where they're being Robert Urich is dragged, I think.
Yep, we got another scene where somebody's getting dragged.
Yeah, he's getting dragged after they grab him with a whip or something. And he gets the best of them by jumping up on the car and then like killing them all.
Mm-hmm.
But in the process, the old guy gets blown into the fucking air by an explosion. Like, they're running across until he goes flying through the air as they're reaching their escape vehicle or whatever. And I thought, holy shit! They for a second there, it was so I didn't notice that it wasn't the actor. It was obviously a stunt guy. But it came out of nowhere, and it was so over the top. I just like, holy shit, they just killed him.
Yeah, it's a weird scene, and if you don't pay attention, you miss it, because right as Jason is beating the bad guys, something happens to the car or whatever it was on that they were getting away in, and if you blink, you miss it, because the next thing you see is that all destroyed and him laying there dying. And I'm like, what How?
Yeah.
What the fuck just happened?
Yeah, you gotta go back a couple of frames to see what happened. But anyway, so the old guy has a death scene and he dies by just sort of like slumping over. It's like,
Yep.
okay. I mean, it wasn't too prolonged or drawn out, but it was, melodrama. Like, okay. And now Princess Lady's crying an awful lot for a guy she's known for like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
But
She's very emotional.
yeah, it's almost like if Obi-Wan had died, except you'd actually had him for half the movie first, but not this
Mhm.
guy. So anyway, so they then we're again, because things just happen in sort of a dilated time kind of thing. We're suddenly back on the ship, and we're kind of having a meal scene where Ron Perlman is cooking up food with robot hands coming out of the wall to assist him.
Those fucking hands are awesome.
I just like, yeah, he's got these little like accordion little gloved hands coming out of the wall that are like holding pots for him as he dishes stuff up and gets things ready.
And for those of you who haven't seen it, it is quite obviously people with black shirts on with white gloves just reaching through the wall doing this stuff for him. It is fucking amazing.
It's the level of just sort of like, this is acceptable special effects. It's just like at that point it doesn't even seem out of place because everything else looks exactly the same. So Ron Perlman, the chef, brings out this giant like turkey roast thing, and everybody's sitting around the dinner table, and he puts it down. Oh, it compliments the chef and everything. And then of course the space herpy pops out of the roast in a very alien-esque scene of like everything popping out of something in the middle of a dinner scene. And it goes running off. I don't remember if they actually ever catch or kill the thing. I don't think they do.
They do, but not until the end.
Oh, okay, that's right. And then we have this funny little conversation where the princess is like, you knew there was a space herpy here and you didn't tell me. He's like, oh, I didn't think it would matter. It's not that big a deal. And, it's obviously sort of a double entendre about talking about actual herpes. So,
yes,
which is funny.
Jesus Christ.
And then, sort of like jump cut, and we're suddenly on this fog-laden expanse, which is supposedly, I guess, the planet they were supposed to go to try to find the dad.
Mm-hmm.
And they're walking through the mists and everything, and suddenly they're attacked by unicorn-riding Amazons.
Yes.
And I'm not even kidding. Unicorn-riding Amazons. Warrior women on horses with horns on their heads come coming through the mist, and they capture them. And then we have another drag thing where the princess and Jason get whips around their necks, and they're dragged off into the distance while Roscoe escapes. And then we're in, I don't know, like a Vegas hotel lobby or something.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
With the warrior women all like growling at the camera as it dollies forward towards, I guess, who's supposed to be the Jabba the Hutt of this situation, who I don't know that we're ever told his name.
I can't remember if we are or not.
Because it certainly didn't happen in the scene. It's not like, I am blah, blah, blah or something. No, it's, or like Jason saying something effective, you must be blah, blah, blah. And he never says it, just happens. And it's this ginger bearded headed guy with eyeglasses with really huge shoulder pads sitting up on a chair, talking all sort of, it kind of reminded me like of Hollywood Baron Harkonnen.
Yeah, for anybody who watched Hollywood Squares back in the 80s, this guy's played by Bruce Valanche.
Yes.
Who is a over-the-top gay dude.
Oh, yeah.
But he actually, he does a decent job in the movie for what he does.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if he'd been given a bit more context, like, I mean, what I had kind of hoped is that he would have been built up as some really scary warlord guy before we even see him, so that actually finally seeing him is more of a shock or more of a contrast to all the stories told about him. But they don't do any of that except like mention him like once, I think 3 scenes back or whatever. So seeing him as he is certainly out of place a little bit, because especially the eyeglasses really throw me off because they look completely, again, anachronistic. But yeah, if they'd given him a bit more backstory, or like if people had been talking about him like he's some big scary something or other, maybe it would have more of an effect. But anyway, so he's being all sort of effete villain guy to them, and how he's got the father, and then they have another big fight with the Amazon women, where ultimately we find out that he's just a head on a robot body.
Yes.
That's all. He's just a head. So they carry around this prop head of him for the next scene or three, as they go looking for the king, and they find the king sitting in a chair in some sitting room or something, and the daughter runs over to the king and hugs him, but it's not really the king, it's a robot. Why is there a robot? I don't know.
They never explain why that would be there.
Yeah,
it makes no sense.
It makes no sense. It's like a decoy or something. I mean, the only other use it serves is that when they open him up, they find like some trace, trying to look for some trace of where he came from or like the origin or something. But that it serves no purpose as far as I can tell. It just doesn't. But then the princess, they're back on the ship and they're dissecting the fake king, and and then the princess says, "Where's my father's ring? He always had his ring. Where's his special ring?" And Bruce Valanche or Lord Valanche or whatever he is, he's got it hidden in his mouth and he just kind of pulls it out and puts it on his tongue. He like moves it out.
Spits it out, yeah.
Spits it out basically. And then she takes her ring and puts the king's ring inside that ring and spins it. And then a hologram comes up and the king tells her where to go and how to find him and the seventh planet, giving her this big, long sort of emotional speech and also telling them specifically, very specifically, you have to go on these coordinates directly. You cannot deviate. Any deviation from this course will result in you hitting a time warp and you may be lost forever. And we've already seen the results of a time warp on the lanky guy. So we know that there's a danger. So they start getting ready to go to, light speed or whatever. But in the meantime, we have poofy pirate shirt sex because suddenly Robert Urick's wearing a poofy white pirate shirt for no particular reason as he goes to visit the princess in her quarters.
Before we get, this is something he wears different shirts like this throughout the movie.
Yes.
Because there's a red one I know he wears. And what they do is they just take a silk button-up shirt and do that girl tie in the middle that they used to do in the 70s.
Yeah, it's really weird.
And instead of giving him a fluffy pirate shirt, they just kind of bitch tie it.
Yeah, it's again weird. Things that look out of place and super cheap. More of it. But anyway, so he goes over to see the princess, just happens to be wearing this shirt, and they end up having holodeck sex.
Mm-hmm.
Or what this movie's version of the holodeck is, which is basically a rear projection of a storm while they sit on a dais and make out. Now, this is, aside from being just sort of like really not even soft core, but like ABC's after school special core sex, it does serve a plot point very quickly. But anyway, as they've jumped to warp speed or whatever to go towards the hidden planet, the seventh planet. Oh no, the Templars are following them.
Yes.
And the Templars start shooting at them, and they have to try to maneuver, but they can't maneuver because of the time warp. But then the ship docks with them, and then they start boarding the ship somehow in the middle of hyperspace. And as a result, they kind of veer off course slightly. And then we get what was one of, I gotta say, even though it's like cheese special effects and everything else, a very creative element to this story that you don't see in any of the other movies that they've referenced. Right. And that is real-time time warp stuff and also like temporal paradox things happening in the moment. So basically the effect is that they speed up the film real quick for like a spurt and then put a little sound effect like, and that's supposed to show that time is passing rapidly, even though we're just seeing him walking down a hallway. So like they say, every minute is a day or something like that. But then it starts rapidly speeding up as time goes on. And they follow through with this by changing all the actors' makeup to like their beards get longer and their hair gets grayer as things jump around.
There's a great part that really pushes what's happening is the princess ends up pregnant.
Yeah. And she's like, Jason, you have to come up here real quick. And it's like, and then she's holding a baby.
By the time he gets there, she has the baby already. But there's a great thing they did in this because yeah, they do the makeup where they keep making him older and older, but at one point they actually replace
Yes,
Robert Urich and
the
Crosby,
princess,
whatever the hell her name is.
Roscoe, and
Yeah,
Crosby, yeah, and then the princess, Karina.
Karina. Yeah. And this is actually where we see the space herpy get killed.
All right. Okay.
The black robot kills it.
Yes.
Steps on it. But they have this really bad fight scene. It is a horrible fight scene.
Yes, it's really it's like it's worse than Power Rangers.
It really is.
Like Power Rangers actually had like sort of like choreography and stuff, but no, it's just bad. But anyway, so as they're fighting these robots, even though everything is happening quote unquote in real time as like the events that we're watching, there's also like temporal paradox stuff happening because while they're fighting the robots and getting older, all the men, apparently Karina has been raising their son out of real time because she's talking about like he's running around as an older kid, like as a toddler or something, and he's got like clothes on. And so it's all very strange, and then get away with it, of course, because time warp. It's like whatever. But this goes on to the point where like the hair is just ridiculously huge and white, and all the guys are old, and they start replacing the actors with old actors where they dub in the voices, and then all of a sudden their son comes to save the day, and it's just Robert Urich again, but playing the son who is now aged to adulthood in the course of this time warp,
which was actually a really cool idea. Yeah, I gotta give them that one.
It was great. I mean, it's cheesy, but again, it's kind of heartfelt. You know, it kind of works.
Yeah, because they're screwed, and it's like, okay, how do they get out of this? And suddenly, their son comes swinging in and saves the day. I'm like, that was fucking awesome.
Yeah, swashbuckle right there, and he just like saves it. And then snap bang, everything. Oh, and also there's something else throughout the movie. On the ship, for whatever reason, they've had like a couple of donkeys and a couple of baby pigs running around.
Yeah.
As the time warps,
they picked them up.
I don't remember. But as the time warp stuff happens, we see the donkeys, two giant like old donkeys and two fully grown pigs. Like they're showing again that the time warp has affected these animals. So they really dedicated themselves to showing off the idea that the time warp is making things age quicker. Also, this is kind of a gross thing, but it was funny. As they're getting the robots, their disposable heroes ready to go fight the Templars, one of the robots gets so scared he shits himself.
Yes, he does.
A big splash of oil and like lug nuts falls out on the floor, and then Jason just like, ugh.
And then one of the other ones steps in it and slips.
Yeah, steps and slips and falls. And then they fight. The sun saves them, and then boo, everything resets because they came out of it. It's like none of it ever happened, but we already do know that the princess is pregnant. We see how that happens. So all that aging, all the adventures and everything didn't actually happen. And the Templars are dead because their ship veered off into infinity or whatever.
They were just slightly off track. So they ended up
1 degree off course or something. And then there's a big bright light from the view screen. They all turn to look, and there is the 7th planet. And it looks a lot like Earth.
It really does.
So this is the big question in my head.
Sure.
Is that Earth? Like all this stuff, sort of like the new Battlestar Galactica show is like their destination is actually Earth, and they've been off in the galaxy somewhere that had nothing to do with Earth, even though they mentioned Tylenol, etc. But anyway, that aside, is that actually Earth, you think?
I think no.
Okay.
And here's why. Because they mentioned that the other 6 planets were destroyed in the war.
Right.
And I don't know of any... I mean, the idea that you'd have to come through a time portal to find Earth and you come out of it that quickly to see it, I'm going to say no.
Well, here's the thing.
I think it's just the footage they had to use.
I'd like to think that the events of the destroyed planets and everything happened billions of years in our history, and they've just found Earth at some point in Earth's history that we don't know of. But regardless of the truth of the matter, that's where the movie ends.
That's where it ends. It just stops right there. We never see her dad again. She never goes and finds him. It ends with them like hugging, looking at the screen.
Yeah, it's like we found Earth, we found the seventh planet, and the credits roll.
Oki says, "I
And
thought they called it the third planet." Nope, it was the seventh planet.
no, third rock from the sun is the other one, but yeah, this is the seventh planet. The seventh planet. And yeah, that's it. There's no after card that says, Jason and the princess eventually blah blah. No, it's just over. It always feels like. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Jack says the fact they use Earth might have been homage to Battlestar. I don't think it is. I honestly think that's the only footage they had left, and it's all they could buy.
Like I said, I might be giving the narrative more credit than it's due. That this is all like.
I like that idea, though. I really do.
Yeah, it's like they found Earth as like Earth was a mythical planet, like in Battlestar Galactica, and that all this stuff happened. Oh, humans and everything are a different breed of humans from a different part of the galaxy, and they've just come across Earth as a mystical hidden planet. And that's where our planet came from some intergalactic war. And so like Ice Pirates 2 would be like, something else. But yeah, that's the end of the movie. And I don't know what else to say.
This is what I would say. I still love this movie, and I would like to see it remade. A little straighter than it was played in there. I don't want any of the comedy bits. I keep space herpes, keep the robots being, just broken shit all the time.
Yeah.
It does end also with Roscoe going, telling us that, this puts them out of business.
Right.
Because there's no reason for them to be ice pirates anymore. There's plenty of water.
Yeah. I would have liked to have seen some more ice pirating.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to call it Ice Pirates, you got to have that be a bit more of a plot point somewhere, because we never saw. I mean, they talked about ice being sort of like a currency or something, but I don't recall anybody ever like dropping 3 ice cubes on the table and saying, "Give me a whiskey" or something. So,
no, but we did see like when they put there was a bounty put on Jason's head when he escaped with the princess, and it was 2 million gallons of water.
Oh yeah.
So that is obviously how they pay for stuff, but how the transfers go, we never see.
Yeah.
It is such a cheesy movie, but it's also a unique enough idea, even with all the plot points that are obviously stolen. It is a unique enough idea that I think it works still as an idea itself. If you guys can get past the cheese of this movie, it is a fun fucking film.
Yeah. It's a cartoon. It's a goofy after school special cartoon for the most part, with some mildly adult language in places and some innuendo. But other than that, it's just a fun movie. That's all it is. It's just a fun movie.
Yeah, you have the Templars running around in fucking chainmail in space, and I fucking love it because full chain. They even on their head they have the covers. I'm like, oh my god, this is ridiculous, but it's fun.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd like to see Monkey's idea of like a remake, reboot, whatever else. I don't think they couldn't do it. And I'd honestly like to see somebody make the movie, but not worry about making the budget a big deal. This kind of goes to something else. There's, as we've been watching some of these older movies again, you obviously notice like the what is as compared to today bad visual processing or green screen effects and such in the movies and things. At the same time, there's something that's kind of charming and kind of sets it apart from like this doesn't look realistic, so it kind of adds to the fantasy element of it in a way. I don't know how to explain it otherwise.
Well, for me, like if you look at the ships that they're on, the ships never look bad.
No, I mean for like they look like Battlestar Galactica type ships, yeah.
Yeah, it's not like old Star Wars or Star Trek from the 60s. It still looks like a decent enough set. The problems they have with the special effects are going to be like the robots. The robots are so bad, and then the space scenes are just garbage.
Well, yeah, the robots are bad, but at the same time, it's like they don't try to make them good. It's like they sort of accepted the fact that this is just bad. Are you talking about like the disposable heroes? Or are you talking about like Radio Shack?
No, I'm talking about the disposable heroes. What I meant by that is like you don't have robotic legs. It's obviously a guy in a box,
right?
Where you could, these days that could be made a lot nicer looking. Even if you were still using human actors, you could make it look better.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I love this movie. I really do.
Yeah, I think
this.
I think one of the elements is if the characters and the world accept this as acceptable, the audience will go along for it. You know,
Yeah.
it's sort of like you just say, you know, yes, it looks cheesy, but all of the characters are referring to these things as robots. They're treating them like robots. So for the sake of this story and this setting, they're robots, even though you can tell it's guys in suits. It doesn't matter. Like you see one, you know it's a robot. You move on because, you know, like I said, they played it straight. They didn't try to do anything more than what they meant. And they, as bad as these settings look, as bad as the costumes might be at times, not always. Like Robert Urich stuff always looked pretty good, except for the proof shirt deal.
Roscoe looked like he just came to the set from his house in the 80s.
Well, he was wearing wearing a Michael Jackson like admiral's jacket at one point for some reason. I was just like, whatever, it looks cool, whatever.
One thing we didn't touch on is when they first, at the very beginning of the movie, this is where you get a real sense of how goofy this movie's going to be. When they first break into the ship that has all the ice on it that they're going to steal, they break into a bathroom.
Yeah, there's a guy taking a shit. There's an alien guy taking a shit.
And as Robert Urich comes in, he sees the guy, turns, he goes, "Take care of him." And Roscoe's next, and he turns to the guy behind him, "Take care of him." The whole freaking line of people, until it finally gets to Ron Perlman, who comes in, and he turns to say to the guy behind him, "Take care of him." But there's nobody there, so he has to come back and knock the guy out by hitting him on the head. Yeah,
there's a little bit of slapstick and things, but it's not. It doesn't overtake the scenes where it happens. I mean, it makes sense for this kind of goofy Saturday morning cartoon kind of aesthetic of the whole thing.
Now,
so
the only unforgivable thing in this movie, in my opinion, is that goddamn score. The music in this is fucking horrible. It's just bad. It's bad.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing: it's bad, but it fits.
I don't think it fits. I think it's because even if you go back to that time and you're watching the movies from there, and especially in 1984, by now we're getting into the era of really big soundtracks. This was TV music. It is.
Well, it looks like a TV movie.
Kind of. I mean, I guess I can give that to you. But if this had a better score, I think you have a better movie. And it's weird to say that because I actually prefer a movie with no music.
Okay.
I think no music can be better than cheesy music.
But space adventure, you need music.
I don't think you really do. I think Star Wars set that standard, but you don't really have to.
Well, I think this movie without music would have not worked because you could probably hear all the bad special effects, sound effects going on. So, but anyway.
I just think that for me, the only real down part of this movie, for whatever other criticism I have, the unforgivable part is that fucking soundtrack. That is horrible.
Yeah. All right. I will give you that. Of all the things that could have used a bit more polish to it, so to speak,
it's so
probably
bad.
The soundtrack. But otherwise, yeah, guys. So if you've never heard of this movie, you're forgiven because most people haven't. This is not a movie that people sort of cite as an inspiration for things because it is a complete theft of so many other ideas, except for a couple of, moments of brilliance for the sake of what it is, as the time warp stuff and everything else goes. I mean, it's just a fun movie. And for me, it's got a sentimental place because it was sort of like that. It's sort of like that space movie that was a dirty joke, you could say, on the playground, because it wasn't Star Wars. It wasn't all like, morality and stuff. And it wasn't Star Trek where it was all like prim and proper. It was sort of like the kid that sat in the back of the assembly hall making a space movie.
Well, this is the other thing about it. I mean, the pirates are unapologetically pirates.
Yes, that too.
We don't have the who shot first because it would definitely Jason would shoot first just for the fun of it.
Exactly. It's a little bit Firefly. I will say it's a little bit Firefly. If you want to have like a more modern analog to it, it is what Firefly. it's basically Firefly, but in the 80s.
Yeah.
So,
And if you guys haven't seen it, you can order it from Amazon,
mhm.
either a hard copy or like I did. If you have Amazon Prime, you can buy it on there. I think mine was $10.
Yeah, no, it was like $7 or $8 plus shipping was like 10. And the poster art is excellent. I'll tell you
Yes,
what,
it is.
they don't do that very often, but I miss the days where like they went to the effort of making like artwork for movies, and of all the things that this movie has that makes it look a lot more high class than it actually is, it's that Drew Struzan almost looking artwork of the box art. So
And where else are you going to get Pimp Bot?
Pimpbot was great.
Pimp Bot was awesome. I
Pimpbot was
fucking
great.
loved him.
But got anything else, Monkey, or shall we wrap
No,
our?
guys, if you haven't seen it, as much as I've recommended any other, watch this movie. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. It's cheesy. Watch it with friends. Watch it with a couple of friends.
Don't go into it looking for high art.
No, by no means. By no means. This is a cheese popcorn movie for a party or something where you're just kind of sitting down and taking it in. But guys, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for the donation, Okie Native. I'm not sure when we'll do our next one of these, but we're on sort of a malleable time frame for these because it's just like when we have the a movie that we want to watch together, and also when schedules align. So in either case, keep an eye out. Watch Twitter. We'll let you know when the next one's coming up. But Monkey, as always, thank you for joining me. Everyone, thank you for coming out and watching with it and going along with us as we talk about the movie. Go and watch it now. That's right. I'm telling you, this is your instruction. Go watch this movie. And otherwise, we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.